I'm Jeffrey Weiss now, and he will take over. Thank
you. For decades, Dr. Zogby has worked for the human rights of Palestinians and for social welfare projects in Lebanon. With Al Gore in 1993, he created Builders for Peace, which is a private sector group promoting U.S. businesses in the West Bank and Gaza. He led a delegation to Cairo to witness peace agreements between the Israelis and the Palestinians in 1994. He appears routinely on major network news programs, is the host of Viewpoint with James Zogby on Abu Dhabi television, an attempt to explain the politics of the United States to Arab-speaking peoples all over the world, in particular Southwest Asia.
But it was important to me to come here tonight because one of the only groups that would work with us back then was the American Friends Service Committee. One of the first public addresses I ever made on this issue was at an AFSC conference in 1976, and it was important to me to be welcomed in the way that I was and to deliver the message that I had. And one of the only members of Congress who would ever work with us on human rights issues back then was Tom Harkin, and I met his staff person who is here tonight, and feel a special debt to Tom for his leadership when it wasn't easy to speak out on these questions. But the problem not only didn't go away, but it got worse. And that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. I want a way to solve these problems. I was asked to speak recently at Northeastern University on the future of U.S.-Arab relations, and I had a hard time seeing my way through to the future, because it's going to get worse before it gets better, and I think we have to understand that. The hole has been dug so deep, and the current administration seems to think that the way out is just keep digging deeper, and it's not. But it's almost hard to see over the top of the hole right now, and I want us to think about that. Just some events in the last few weeks to make it clear the degree to which we're in a bad state in that region. The bombings in Algeria hit the government palace and police station. The effort at bombings in Morocco that only took the lives of, in the two instances, of the bombers themselves, and the bombing of the Parliament building in the Green Zone in Baghdad, all of them by groups affiliated to Al-Qaeda, make it clear that that terrorist organization not only hasn't been defeated, but has metastasized across the region and in other parts of the world as well. That wasn't bad enough. The situation in Afghanistan that we were supposed to have solved only shows signs of getting worse. Taliban is stronger, attacks are up, and the casualty of allies has increased rather dramatically in the last several months. Casualties are down in Baghdad, but as the Pentagon came out with a report this last week showed, actually casualties have gone up in the last 3 months since the surge began in the rest of Iraq. Because as the Baker-Hamilton Commission people reported, what would happen if you pacify one part of the country is that insurgents and sectarian terrorists leave that arena and take their evil deeds elsewhere. And so now casualties are increasing everywhere else, but even Baghdad itself is not safe. And so one questions whether or not the surge is working, but clearly the war is not getting any better. And with demonstrations led by Muqtada al-Sadr, who we were told could be discounted as a nut, and then later told, more recently told, well, we think he can be incorporated into this whole thing. He's called on his people in Baghdad to calm things down. Now these demonstrations that were estimated to be in the hundreds of thousands across the country, not only calling for an end to the occupation, but now calling on his people to attack. The fact is that in those two arenas, the situation has gotten worse, not better. Baker-Hamilton gave the president and I think both parties a rope to climb out of the hole. It was a responsible way out. We have to have a responsible way out of this war. that, yes, gets us out and sets a date and pulls us out, but has us do all the things we have to do in order to get out. Because if we don't, then we are responsible for what happens after. And now the resolution just passed Congress includes Baker Hamilton. It's interesting to me that the media never picked that up. Only picked up the fact that there was a date. That wasn't the issue. The issue was it was a responsible way out. That's what we ought to be focused on. 2008 is going to come, November is going to come, January 2009 is going to come, we're still going to be there. Don't let anybody confuse you to think otherwise. The question is, how are you going to get us out and not have us hang our head in shame like we did after Vietnam? Diggity. That's the second step. And then you got to figure out a way out. And I come to you because we're at the beginning of a presidential contest. And in this instance, you are more important than me. You get to do what I can't do. You are our interlocutors. I mean, you want to be first in the nation? You're first in the nation. You have a responsibility to ask the questions that none of us can ask. To hold them accountable like we can't. The question is, what are you going to do in the next 4 years that's different than the last 4? How are you going to get us out of this hole? When that woman, Sue Dravis from Muscatine, asked Senator Obama that question that became a national story thanks to the AP and the Des Moines Register and everybody else who helped do it, it was enormous. Maybe the first time that we began to see in this election that we might have the possibility of having some candidates talk about the issue that they otherwise won't talk about. Less detail, the better. Don't make me have to get into issues I don't want to talk about, but we're going to make you get into the issues you don't want to talk about, because we can't be electing people anymore that aren't going to tell us what they're going to do. We want to...
Jeffrey Weiss now, and he will take over. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Weiss of the American